Thanks for coming, you guys. Yeah, so we make knives. This business started literally in my garage when I was 25 years old. I always used to, I love cars. From like high school to 25, cars, any car guys here? Oh yeah. Yeah, right? So I was all into turbochargers and, you know, custom engine management and all that. And I had this story in my head that I was like, I'm a car guy, I'll be a car guy forever. Until I started to make the parts, and then I kind of realized that, you know, the story in my head was wrong. I was getting out of cars and moving into like making things and manufacturing. So, you know, something I want to tell you guys is kind of watch the story in your head of like what you think your life is supposed to be, because sometimes you just keep telling yourself the same thing even though you've evolved past it. And I found that many times throughout my life that Eric's here now. So yeah, so we started this business in my garage 7 years ago. And once we finally realized that there's this huge market for custom knives, we're like, clearly this is what we got to do. So, I mean, you flew out here from Seattle to move out here to help me start this business. And how was it at first?
Rough. You know, being 25, moving into my brother's basement again. Kind of like living with your parents and having to borrow the car and all that for a couple of years. But totally worth it now, like, you know, now that we got the shop and we're, you know, on our own again and things are going well.
Yeah. I mean, for so many years, I thought I was always just going to be the one guy in his garage doing what he wants, and that was the story I was telling myself. But then, you know, he came on, and then it was like, well, we could actually grow this into something real and something bigger. And I mean, where we are now is far beyond my wildest dreams back then. I never thought we could do something like this. But then you push and you push and you push and you learn and you teach yourself. I mean, everything I learned from YouTube or by doing it myself. So just the dedication and the desire to just go out and do it. It's all possible. Anything you want to learn is out there. And I mean, it was a hard struggle for many years. Get your name out there. I mean, we filmed on YouTube, we filmed the whole story of how we started making the knives. Basically from day one, like, hey guys, let's start making a knife. And I mean, the YouTube marketing has been basically our only source of marketing the entire time. So it's been amazing. And then the feedback, like once you start sharing your problems, you're like, man, I broke an end mill or I trashed a blade or something. You post it, even though you're ashamed of it, and then somebody comments and gives you a good piece of advice and you learn from it. So like, it really works out. The community we've been in has been super helpful and super, just amazing and supportive. So we've been in this shop now for 3.5 years. And I mean, moving from the garage, we basically needed a bigger shop because I wanted to buy that machine, and that thing wouldn't fit in my garage. But we had a smaller version before. I mean, the first mill that I got was literally this big. It was a manual mini mill that I converted to CNC myself. I put the stepper motors on, I wired it up, and I was like, I gotta make a CNC machine. So we did that. And then, I mean, it just grew and grew and grew. So, I mean, as we go along, if anybody has any questions, it's probably better to ask them immediately as opposed to like save them for later, because we're all gonna forget. So yeah, please feel free, yes. So we make folding pocket knives. So we make very, very high-end, premium folding pocket knives. It is very sharp. Please be careful. So like, traditionally, knife making is a very, you know, handmade craft, whether you forge it and hammer it, or whether you grind it on a sanding belt or something like that. We wanted to do as much as we can with the advanced technology and the CNC machining, because I'm a super nerd for that kind of stuff. That's what I want to do. That's what I love. And then, you know, Eric came on, and he's more the finishing guy, and he's like likes to sharpen them and polish them and like fit them all together and make sure it's good, and then tell me how to do my job better by making better surface finishes and better tolerances. So it's been this evolution of, you know, make it better, make it tighter, make it more accurate, make every part interchangeable because they're so tight and precise.
But like an example would be, we used to have to serialize like all the handles with the blade after we set it all up to make sure that it still goes back together the same way. Whereas now we can kind of, you know, if we scrap the, you know, one of the handles like later on in the, you know, process, we can just grab another handle and it just works. Yep. Or a blade, they're just almost always interchangeable now, which is way better than, you know, having to like pick everything out of the tumbler and make sure you like match it all up with all the perfect parts. Like now we just grab a lock side, we grab a display side, and they just go together and they're fine.
Yeah. And that's been a hard process to get us there. Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm not that naturally creative. I can't draw. I don't design very well. But man, can I ever focus in on what I'm doing? So we're like, let's focus in on this one knife model, and then we brought in a second one. But let's make this the best version of what it can be, instead of being all crazy and like not getting great. So we want to be the best at what we're making. So that's what we've been doing for the past 7 years. And then, I mean, the team's growing. We got Aaron doing our social media now. We got Sky, who's a student at Mohawk, doing a co-op right now. And Angelo, we pulled him out of the aerospace industry.
Oh, really?
He used to make landing gear for big 747s and all kinds of crazy stuff. And my father-in-law, Barry, doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, he runs the heat treat department now, and as well as full financial accounting background and everything. Yeah, so we've grown to a team of 6 people. We're currently hiring the 7th. We just did interviews yesterday, and I mean, we're growing. The shop's getting smaller and smaller.
What's a 3D printer for?
So we're making these stackable parts bins, organizing bins. But I've made so much cool stuff with the 3D printer, like little brackets and adapters and all kinds of stuff. Let's see, we got 10 kids. How about let's split into 2 groups so that we can kind of like work our way around. You want to take one group? Go that way. I'll take one group and go this way, and then we'll switch. So even the table that you touched is like sentimental to me. When I first got my first machine, I literally found it in the barn, and I was like, I got to make a table out of that. So I put my first machine on this table. That was 10 plus years ago. So I mean, here's we've got our staging area. We do get the profile of the blade water jet cut. You guys know what that is?
Yep.
It's amazing technology. Currently that's the only thing we outsource. We do everything else in this building. We do the heat treat, we do all the milling and everything like that. So this gives us the raw blanks. And then notice how kind of shiny that part is. That's what that machine does. That's a lapping machine. So it makes parts super flat, parallel, and with a really good surface finish.
Very cool. So what materials do you use in your knives? Do you use any like special materials?
These are titanium.
Oh, nice.
And the blades are a high carbon stainless steel from Sweden. I did these copper inlays a while ago.
Oh, yeah.
With a sweet hammered pattern, CNC machine.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so these turned out cool, and then they patina and they really look like cool over time.
Oh yeah.
So I made these like 4 years ago, and every now and then on Instagram that knife will pop up, and you'll see the patina, and the guy like loves it. He's in love with the knife. And then we want to experiment with this. This is nickel, aluminum, bronze. So it's like everything.
Holy cow.
You know, brass is a soft metal, so you don't want to use it as a bearing surface. But apparently, like, feel that nickel, aluminum, bronze is dense and like a great bearing surface. So basically, we want to make. This is the smallest I could buy the material, so we have to make a handle out of that. So basically, I mean, we're just going to chuck it up in the mill and just remove everything that's not a handle.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this is our staging area. Angelo's using the microscope right now to make sure he's making the screw for our knives right now. And you know, every little detail, every chamfer, every aspect of it gets totally analyzed so that we make the best parts in the world, basically.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the customers that buy it, they appreciate it, they love it. Every time they hold it, I want them to like admire it. You know, I want them to keep looking and find a new detail. Like inside, that's the inside of the handles that nobody really sees.
Oh, wow.
Right? So we put the date, the month, the year, the name of the knife, the Norseman, and there's all kinds of little hidden details all over the whole thing. So these are all the cutting tools we use to cut the fancy materials. But yeah, and then like with the 3D printer, we 3D printed all these -1s because we keep an inventory of our parts. So every time you pull an end mill, put it in the machine, drop a little -1 in there until you tally it on the software. So it's like the quick and dirty way of saying I took one, so that we don't run out. Because if you run out, all of a sudden you can't make parts.
Yeah.
So this is our CNC mill. Currently it's milling handle backsides. It's threading little holes on the inside of the handles, so take a peek inside. So many niche industries out there that just You don't even know until, I didn't even know the knife world existed until 7 years ago.
Knives are fun.
Yes.
Like, they don't have to be a focused weapon. They can
Exactly.
be a tool.
It's a tool. It's absolutely a tool. I use my knife 5 times a day. It's the kind of thing, people that have never carried one, they're like, why do you need a knife? Why do you carry a knife?
Yeah.
I'm like, until you start to carry it, you don't really realize how many Amazon boxes you got to open.
Yeah.
How many, random paper and things you got to cut, zip ties, plastic.
This place is awesome. I'm glad I got to come here. Like, I remember my first year in manufacturing, I made a pen and like a die out of aluminum. It was pretty fun stuff. And it's just great things to do. When I started with my obsession, I guess you could say, it was probably around 15 when I truly started wanting to work with things. And it's just never gone away. I just like working with stuff. I love the idea of working with metal. Like, my dad is a car guy, so it's a very, it just comes down the generations. So working with cars, it just makes sense to want to work with metal too, to like fix cars or whatever. And then I slowly just developed into liking knives as well. Like, I wanted to actually do my own custom knife making shop, funny enough. But it's actually funny because it's almost like the opposite of this, where I wanted to do blacksmithing because I was a very big blacksmith obsessed person. And I want to like forge the steel with a hammer and stuff, and it was something that's really interesting. Like, for instance, in my class right now, I'm actually working on a Crusaders helmet, and I've just been working on it lately, but I still need to weld it all together. But it's real fun because you can cut it out on the CNC and then like put it through the other machines to get things out of it. It's amazing.
Anything that goes onto this plate gets washed into the crevices, and then there's a drain on the back that's draining into a bucket right now. It's not exactly a mirror polish, but it's pretty close. Like, you can see a lot of scratches on the finish, but they're not like deep scratches. They're basically just optically scratched. So if you tilt it in the light, it's still pretty shiny. So this is our kind of organization staging rack and kind of scrap parts rack. These are pretty much all bad in some way. Scratch and dent, or lots of blades that just have random issues that could still be knives but are just no good. But then knives, when they're in complete kits and numbered, they go here. Just to stage them away from the machining center, and then they get put up here where Angelo starts setting them up and going through them all. This one's for various, kind of polishing on flat surfaces.
And that does put that doesn't take material off, or does it?
It does, yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
I feel that.
So that one's 15 micron. It's really hard to get, the right kind of stone that'll get you that right edge.
Right. Yep. And what grit are you using for paper?
I start at 180, I think.
Yeah.
And then finish at like a micron belt. So you just gotta wash off all the grease and all the fingerprints and everything. Otherwise, there'll be nasty spots in the color, or it just won't match in that one spot. Kind of like if you're, sandblasting something and you leave your thumb in one spot and miss it, it's just not gonna look right. Yeah. It doesn't chip, but it will wear off. It's a layer of oxide on the surface that just happens to turn into a beautiful color. Don't really do too much yet, but 12 to 14 is a nice bronze color. The spacers on mine. So, after anodizing, that handle that we just did, it's going to get cleaned up a little bit, and then it goes in the tumbler to give that contrasting color.
So we'll show you what the tumbler does.
Finally, something that's made in Canada.
I know, eh?
This is kind of more for a surface finish for us.
Surface though, okay.
But yeah, you can totally deburr parts in these. It's just more so that we don't have to do a satin finish on everything that's going to scratch immediately. Yeah, like with this medium mix that we have in here, we'll get these random like kind of weird scratches. So we just leave it in until they come out pretty. But I think the bulk of the work is done within maybe an hour or two. So for heat treat, we heat treat them in these foil baggies.
Yeah.
Because, well, at this temperature, if you leave any oxygen that's in there with the blades, it's just going to turn them black and basically like burn the outside, and you're not going to get a good result. So with these, you put the blade in, seal it up, and then whatever oxygen is in there right away just gets sucked out with the heat. And then there's nothing in there. It is a vacuum sealed bag. Yeah. Yeah, you fold it up and push out whatever air is in there, and as soon as it gets that hot heat, whatever air's in there just gets burnt up. And then yeah, the blades come out nice, even, consistent color. And we test with the Rockwell tester over here, just so we know that every batch they're, at 60 Rockwell like they're supposed to be.
So right now we're making a tiny little screw for our knives, like one of those guys. Currently it's right there. It starts over here from this round bar. So it does all the machining on this side, and then it'll transfer it to that side, and then do all the machining on this side. So the turret right here has all the tools we need to make what we gotta make. Right, so drills, turning tools, all kinds of stuff. Threading tools. Check this next part out. So the part we're making has a Torx pattern drive into it, like a screwdriver drive. And we use a tiny little end mill. It's on the other side, we can't see it. But like you take 4 hairs, you put them together, that's the size of this tool. And if it breaks, which it does, then it's a bad part. And I don't want to keep making bad parts. So this next op, which should be good. So that's a Torx driver. It's slowly pushing it in. It's sensing for torque right now. And if it's clean, if it pulls out, it's good. It's a good part, so it moves on. If it's bad, it'll sense some resistance, and then it'll say, oh, it's a bad part, stop, change the tool, don't keep making bad parts. So these are the kind of creative things you can put into a process to make it just reliable. Like I ran this thing, we left at 7 p.m., it ran until like 1 a.m., and the parts were good. So now it's going to go to my patented pill bottle, spit it out into the pill bottle, and then move on to the next part. What's that?
How many classes you need to use this?
I learned it all myself. Yep. I had some, when you buy a machine like this, they give you a couple days of training. So I abused that like as hard as possible. And then after that, you just figure it out. You're like, you got a manual, you got YouTube, you got the internet, you just learn it. Yep. Yep. If you have that dedication, you want to make something, then you just go out and do it.
Hi, my name's Jacob Burgess. I'm very passionate in making things with my hands and hands-on activities, and it's super fun. I'm in a SHISM program for manufacturing. So far this year, I've done a hammer, I've done a teacher's exhaust pipe, I've made a few CNCs, and that's it so far this year. It's a really fun and creative trade. I don't think there's enough people in it, young people.
You're next, guys.
No.
What do you think, though?
Pretty sweet.
Yeah? Yeah. So all the parts I make are designed in this software. You can see the entire fixture. Right, so those are all the parts we're making on the mill right now. I make the lathe parts on it too. Yep. Yeah, I love it. You know, you can go all around, you can see all your parts. So these are all the tool paths. After you design the part, you got to tell the tools what to do. You got to know what tools you're going to use. You got to tell them where to go. right? So these are all the tool paths. If I want to make an inlay, if I want to do my honeycomb, and they're all kind of laid on top of each other right now. Like this spot right here is our thumb ramp.
A thumb ramp.
Right there on the knife. So if we want it super smooth, it's super tight tool path to make it a very smooth finish. I think the code that runs that is like 400,000 lines of code. But Fusion kind of does it for you. Once you tell it what to do, it just spits it out. I've actually got it here, so that's some of the code. It just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And sometimes you gotta go in there and you gotta change things. The code's not good enough, or usually in my case, it's like, but I want it to do this. I want it to do this first and then that. So you learn how to change that. It's like once you have a goal, you like push yourself and you're like, I can figure that out. I'm gonna change that. It's all possible. Why not?
See how fast that's going?
Yeah, it just eats up that code.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thank you. And thank you.
Appreciate it. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, John.
All right, so the kids just left. It was an amazing time. They were here for 2 hours. I think, after I do an event like that, or, talk for a lot, I always kind of wonder if I did a good enough job, or, if I provided enough value, because I just, as a perfectionist, I always want to do the best, be the best. And I think we did an amazing job. I think we did, everybody on the team kind of shared their story and their passion for what they do and how they do it and how we think and what the mentality is around here. So I think we provided the kids with, as much value as we possibly could, and kind of opened their eyes to what is possible, what businesses are all about, how there are small businesses out there that do crazy cool things that you don't always think about because it's not a big box business. So I think I got through to some of the kids, and I know that they all had a great time and really enjoyed their time here. So I want to thank you kids for coming all out. It was awesome. Bunch of 12th grade high school kids, and it was great. So I don't know what else to say. Thanks guys for watching.